Y&R Spoilers Tuesday reveals that Aristotle Dumas is held at a luxurious hotel, where soft yellow lights cover every corner, creating an atmosphere that is both solemn and unstable. Outside the large windows, the trees sway in the gentle summer breeze. Inside is a world where power, ambition, and dark secrets are waiting to be exposed. In that moment, all eyes are on the key figures, people whose small actions can shake the foundations of not only a family but an entire community. Billy, with his sharp intuition, has sensed the tension rising in the air very early. Every look, every handshake, every whisper between Dumas and Victor makes him unable to sit still. Billy understands that when two powerful people confront each other in a closed space, no one can predict what will happen. He was especially afraid that an unrestrained action would lead to a tragedy, a brawl, or even a murder in the middle of this luxurious party. For Billy, it was not only a personal responsibility but also a burden of the past when he had witnessed too many losses just because of a moment of impulsiveness of powerful men. Billy silently watched Dumas's every move. Aristotle Dumas, with his confident and cold demeanor, did not hide his intention to provoke Victor. The hidden words, the challenging smirks, all were like knives cutting deep into Victor's self-esteem, who always considered his honor and power to be inviolable. Billy realized that with just a small spark, everything would burst into an unquenchable fire. He proactively approached each person, skillfully adjusting the atmosphere, finding ways to separate the two enemies from each other whenever they were accidentally drawn closer by conversations or curious guests. In Billy's mind, the worst-case scenario kept flashing through his mind. The sound of crashing blood and panic screams amid the elegant suits and gorgeous dresses. In a corner of the room, Victoria seemed completely isolated from the power struggles. After a series of losses and personal events, Victoria appeared cold and tough on the outside, but her eyes revealed a look of pain and exhaustion. Victoria tried to hide her emotions, but sadness still crept into every line of her face, every gesture that trembled unconsciously. The pain she faced came not only from family matters but also from the pressures of the business world, doubts about loyalty, and even the feeling of being betrayed by those who were once closest to her. To Victoria, Dumas's party was just a lavish drama that she was forced to participate in, once again caught up in the endless cycle of power struggles. But deep down, Victoria knew that she could not run away from the pain forever. She had to face it, had to dare to rise from the ashes to continue fighting for honor, for the belief in the future of herself and her family. Aristotle Dumas's event began with proud speeches about personal achievements and strategic vision, but for many, it was just a cover for a deeper plan. Dumas not only wanted to show off his power but also wanted to openly challenge Victor, turning the party into a real arena of the city's biggest egos. As the party progressed, the tension increased as the guests gradually realized the hidden war between the two forces. The wary looks, the hidden words made the atmosphere stifling and cold. Deep down, everyone knew that if just one person lost their mind, everything would spiral out of control. In the meantime, Audra faced a completely different but equally dangerous dilemma. Audra is caught up in the machinations of Damien Kane, who is desperately looking for a new job for Holden Novak after being fired by Dumas. Damien understands that Holden will not only lose his income but also his position in the business world if he does not find a new position soon. Vibrante, where Audra is currently a leader, becomes a potential destination that Damien aims for Holden, and he is determined to convince Audra to give Holden a chance at all costs. Audra, who has always shown herself to be competent and in control, is in a difficult position this time. She understands that if she hires Holden, Vibrante can benefit from the ability of someone who has been in many important positions. However, Audra is also aware of the troubles that Holden brings: rumors of instability, complicated relationships with many powerful figures, and especially the risk of retaliation from Dumas if she is found to have helped someone Dumas himself had dismissed. Standing on that thin line, Audra must consider every step, every decision, because just one small mistake can push her and Vibrante into a dangerous spiral, where there is no room for compromise. Meanwhile, Holden, a character who seems to be on the sidelines of the war, silently observes everything. He knows how fragile his position is, and knows Damien's sacrifices. Although his pride makes Holden want to refuse help many times, harsh reality forces him to face the choice between personal pride and the future. Holden understands that if he loses this opportunity, The door to returning to the business world will almost completely close. He is torn between the feeling of failure and the fragile hope of starting over. Dumas' party, under the luxurious surface, is actually just a silent contest of power, money, and pride. Each character has their own calculations, pain, and desire to fight for a chance to survive. Billy still patiently acts as a bridge, trying to prevent each situation from erupting into violence. He took the initiative to pull Victor away from direct confrontations, quietly reminded those close to him to stay calm, and at the same time monitored Dumas' every move to prevent any opening from turning into a tragedy. Meanwhile, Victoria quietly left the crowd, finding a quiet corner to face her own pain. She no longer wanted to run away, no longer wanted to continue hiding her sadness behind forced smiles. Victoria understood that sometimes the greatest courage is not standing up to fight, but daring to admit that she is in pain, daring to cry to ease the pain, so that one day she will be strong enough to move on. The event became more and more tense towards the end when Dumas decided to provoke Victor with a challenging statement, right in front of hundreds of guests. The atmosphere in the room seemed to freeze in just a moment. Victor, with the courage of someone who had experienced hundreds of business battles, only coldly responded with a sharp gaze. But at that moment, Billy appeared in time, proactively easing the tension, turning the confrontation into a humorous story to divert the attention of the crowd. Billy's acumen saved the whole party from chaos, but everyone understood that the real war was still smoldering, waiting to explode. In another development, Audra finally made a decision after many sleepless nights. She agreed to arrange a trial interview for Holden at Vibrante, but at the same time carefully kept it a secret from the shareholders and senior management team, avoiding Dumas' discovery. Audra understood that every decision she made at this time was a double-edged sword, but if she succeeded, she would not only help Holden and Damien but also prove her mettle and strategic vision to the entire industry. On the contrary, if she failed, everything could collapse. Not only her career but also the reputation and future of Vibrante. Outside the hall, Damien waited anxiously. He put all his faith in Audra, but he was also unsure if everything would go well. For Damien, this success was not just a job, but also a restoration of lost honor. Proof that he and Holden still had value in a world that was always ready to eliminate failures. The waiting time became endless when he received a brief message from Audra. The interview would take place the next morning. Damien breathed a sigh of relief, not daring to celebrate too soon. Just quietly looking at Holden with hopeful eyes, giving his friend the motivation to overcome the final obstacle. Meanwhile, the silent changes continued to take place. The party ended in a heavy atmosphere, everyone carrying their own worries. Billy silently told himself that he would not let anything get out of control, even though he knew there were many challenges ahead. Victoria returns, alone in the cold, empty room, but this time she decides not to avoid the pain anymore. Audra stands by the window of Vibrante headquarters, watching the city light up, telling herself that even though the road ahead is dangerous, she will not give up. Because only those who dare to take risks, dare to face the risks are worthy of being remembered in the constant changes of life. Meanwhile, Damien and Holden, in the dark night of failure, still kindle a belief in tomorrow, in the ability to rise from the ashes, to start a new chapter for themselves. The long nights of power, honor, and ambition continue, creating a picture that is both tragic and brilliant, where each character writes their own destiny with bold choices, inner struggles, and the courage to face the truth, even though sometimes that truth costs them everything they have ever had. The Newman mansion was bathed in warm lights and soft music, where every corner was decorated with luxurious flowers and sparkling ribbons. Nicky Newman's birthday party was not only an occasion for family reunion but also a stage for power plans, expectations, and silent calculations of each individual, especially when Victor Newman, a man who had never known compromise, once again became the center of all movements. Everyone knew that under the glitter of that lavish party were a series of hidden waves of disputes, rivalries, and challenges, all waiting to explode into a storm. From the moment he stepped into the mansion, Kyle Abbott knew he was embarking on a difficult test. Despite his meticulous preparation from his outfit to his greetings and opening lines, Kyle still cannot escape the pressure of having to win the acceptance of Victor Newman, who has always looked down on him despite the family ties between them through marriage and his relationship with Claire. Kyle is well aware of Victor's scrutinizing eyes and sarcastic remarks that are cleverly hidden behind his polite shell. But Kyle is also aware that, with just one small mistake, he will forever be excluded from the circle of power that he longs to join. Claire Newman, with all the faith and enthusiasm of youth, believes that Kyle's sincere feelings and tireless efforts will eventually touch her grandfather's iron heart. In Claire's mind, Victor is not only an inviolable monument, but also the only person she wants to prove that Kyle is worthy of love and acceptance. She spent weeks preparing for the occasion, instructing Kyle on every detail, from how to approach family members to how to win over Victor's key allies, even arranging for Kyle to have a private conversation with Victor in the most intimate atmosphere of the party. But things did not go as Claire expected. In the dim light of the banquet hall, as the guests laughed and talked happily, Victor still did not miss any opportunity to test Kyle. From profound questions about his future direction, about his management ability to hints about his loyalty. At every moment, Kyle clearly felt Victor's invisible pressure, as if everyone was just a pawn in a game in which he was the only one in control. Kyle's efforts, from proactively helping Nikki, sharing happy memories of Harrison, or offering new ideas for the business, were all coldly ignored or sharply rebuffed by Victor. The tension gradually escalated, causing Kyle to lose his composure. His every awkward gesture caught the eye of Victor, who never forgave even the slightest weakness. Claire witnessed the whole thing. Her heart felt like it was suffocating. Every time Kyle failed to impress Victor, she felt like she was the one at fault. She tried to reconcile, giving evidence of Kyle's change and maturity, trying to pull her grandfather out of his old prejudices. But for Victor, those things only made him feel more challenged in his power and control. Frustration and helplessness rose in Claire's heart, as she realized that the wall between Kyle and Victor seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. Nothing could break it. But while all eyes were on Kyle and Victor's wordless test, Victor himself was secretly hatching a much bigger plan. He wanted not only to remove Kyle from Claire's orbit, but also to completely destroy this relationship, ending any possibility of a dangerous alliance that could affect the Newman legacy. In his mind, Victor knew that more drastic action was needed, not simply ignoring or making things difficult for Kyle. So, even while the party was still in full swing, he took the initiative to meet Audra in a secluded corner of the room, where the family's biggest plans often began in whispers. Audra Charles, no stranger to power struggles, sensed the seriousness of Victor's every look and word. He did not beat around the bush, did not disguise his intentions, but made an attractive offer, a powerful incentive for her to weigh her loyalty, her chances of promotion, and the risk of being drawn into Victor's dangerous game. In return, Victor wanted Audra to be the trigger, creating a rift between Kyle and Claire as soon as possible, even causing them to break up during the party if possible. For Victor, there were no limits to the means to achieve his goals. Anyone who stood in his way would be mercilessly eliminated. Audra stood on the line between honor and power, realizing that she held in her hands the key that could change the entire situation of the relationship between the Newmans and Abbotts. She weighed every consequence, every move, because she knew that if she made just one mistake, she would pay a very high price. But ambition, a thirst for recognition, and pressure from Victor, whom no one dared to disobey, finally made Audra agree. From that moment on, the hidden plans were activated, and Nikki's birthday party inadvertently became the starting point for a new series of events that none of the people present that night could have foreseen. While Victor focused his efforts on bringing down Kyle, on the other side of the splendid room, Victoria Newman had to face a completely different storm. An event that no one had prepared for. The real health of Cole, the man who had been her youth, her hope, the most important piece of her life. Recently, Victoria had been worried many times by Cole's unusual signs of fatigue, the short but increasingly frequent pains, the times he suddenly sat silently, looking far away with his eyes filled with nameless fear. But Victoria always tried to deny any bad premonition, telling herself that it was just work pressure or temporary stress. However, all illusions were crushed when Victoria received a call from Cole's personal doctor. A fateful call, signaling to her that the real storm was just beginning. The test results showed that Cole was facing a terminal illness, a diagnosis so cruel and cold that Victoria could not breathe when listening to each hopeless medical explanation. She was stunned, clutching the edge of the table, trying to control her erratic breathing, but all images of the future, all the happy plans she had cherished with Cole suddenly disappeared like fragile bubbles. Victoria no longer had the strength to keep her face radiant in the middle of the party. She quietly left the crowd, walking down the long hallway, each step heavy. She did not cry, did not scream, but only felt a dull pain seeping into every cell. Over the years, Victoria has become accustomed to being strong, facing the shocks of business life, the blows from competitors, and fierce internal struggles. But never once has she felt so weak and helpless, as if the whole world around her collapsed in just a moment. In despair, Victoria could only turn to her mother, Nikki, the woman who had helped her through storms many times, the only person who understood the loneliness and fear that she could not share with anyone else. Nikki immediately recognized the difference in her daughter's eyes, did not ask much, just quietly hugged Victoria, let her lean on her shoulder, and cried silently without having to say a word. That was the only moment at the party that these two strong women could let go of all their shells to return to being themselves, a mother, a daughter, leaning on each other in the midst of life's storm. As the party drew to a close, each guest left one by one, carrying polite smiles and good wishes. The Newman mansion was immersed in flickering lights and rare silence. Victor was still calculating the next steps to protect his legacy and power. Audra was secretly planning to separate Claire and Kyle, and Victoria sat silently by the window, looking into the darkness with red eyes, her heart filled with unanswered questions. In that house, each person had their own worries, a silent war that no one could have foreseen, that behind the success, glamour and power were countless wounds that would never fully heal. In the early days of summer, when new doors seemed to be opening for relationships and potential storms, the picture of the lives of the Genoa City characters becomes more vibrant, complex and full of surprises than ever. Each small event initially seems to have little connection, but when connected together, they gradually reveal a summer full of rapid events. Conflicts pushed to a climax and secrets about to be exposed in lavish parties, romantic trips and uncompromising confrontations. Phyllis Summers, still a woman who has never stopped at any door, has planned a bold move. Seeing the coldness and reserve from Dumas when she proposed a meeting in Washington, D.C., Phyllis did not hesitate. She always found another way, another solution, and this time, her eyes were on Europe, where Nick Newman was preparing for a trip to attend a festival in France. Phyllis thought that if Dumas had refused to approach her in the U.S., then an international, vibrant and glamorous space would be the right place for her to try her luck again, and at the same time, she wanted to put Nick in a dilemma, forcing him to consider the proposal she had carefully prepared. Phyllis was not only interested in work, but also wanted to mend or at least reshape the relationship that had many debts with Nick, because deep down, there was still an undeniable connection between them, even though things had broken down many times. For Nick Newman, Phyllis's sudden appearance made him confused. He was used to Phyllis's initiative, boldness, and sometimes too explosive. But this time, Nick could not foresee all the consequences of bringing her along. On the one hand, he wanted to maintain his distance and the new stability he had just built. On the other hand, the memories of the days together, the projects and challenges they had overcome were always a weakness in Nick's heart. The proposal that Phyllis made, a bold idea related to cooperation with Dumas, an emerging but very dangerous force, made Nick consider carefully. He knew that if Phyllis acted on her own, things could get out of control and turn into a scandal, especially when this trip was related to secrets that no one dared to tell. At the same time, in another corner of the city, Sally Spectra was struggling with her own emotions and self-esteem when she heard that Billy Abbott would also attend the upcoming big party. Sally never liked having to share personal space or important occasions with people who could make her lose her balance. Billy's presence was always a test of Sally's patience and self-esteem. She knew she had no choice but to accept this, but that didn't mean Sally would let herself be pushed into a corner.